Yeah.
Hey, Karen.
Hello.
So gorgeous to have you here today. I'm just personally so excited about this, but I know that it is probably going to have value to other people. So we're going to record. Um, so Karen is a trained and professional. What can I call you? A sexologist, sexologist?
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Somatic sexologist. Yeah.
Somatic sexologist,
Yeah.
um, who brings over 20 years experience working with people around shame, stigma, trauma, and life thresholds. Um, Sexuality and empowerment has been a running theme throughout, and Karen is passionate about helping folks occupy themselves by embracing all aspects of the human experience: physical, mental, emotional, energetic, sexual, and spiritual, through welcoming the unconscious, unspoken parts of ourselves to reconnect with our true essence and express our sexuality with joy and curiosity. Um, so it's like you're my expert. You're my expert in guiding light, especially as someone who has ended up working in the area, not intentionally, but because unintentionally I have strayed into the area of taboo and the forbidden in the way that I'm exploring drawing the naked men. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm delighted to speak to you. So I wanted to go right back to the beginning and ask, what does shame mean to you? Shame is a word that we banter around a lot. And
Mm.
what do you think about shame?
Yeah. It's a funky old word and way of being. And I suppose over the years I have learned an awful lot around shame um from the various different vocations that I kind of worked in. And um, I noticed that there's a few different elements to shame around how it is in the body. Like we have a shame response, and then it's, quite a universal response. There's several kind of ones around like a feeling of contraction, wanting to disappear, maybe um, flush of heat, and maybe shortness of breath. And then that's a physiological part that it affects us. And then the mind, it affects our cognitive, our mind and our inner world and our and how we think about ourselves. And usually there's an undercurrent core belief around I'm inherently wrong, I'm inherently bad, or something's wrong with me. So it's it's a it's hard to put in one liner. Shame
Yeah.
is this, and it needs a little bit of an explanation. But I also have been learning, and especially with my somatic sexology training, that it's an altered state. When we're in a shame response, we're in an altered state, and it actually impacts our capacity to think or to make decisions, like that cognitive part of our executive part of our brain, and also to speak up for ourselves. So yeah, it's a biggie. Like shame is a biggie. That is getting more and more light, because as we know, it doesn't like to be seen. We desperately want to avoid feeling shame responses, but we're usually unwilling to shine the light in it or talk about it. And, there's this whole thing of like shame responds or loses its charge when it's, in safe spaces and we're speaking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that totally mirrors my experience. If I had grown up in a world that was open to working with sexuality and nudity, I think I naturally would have been an artist who was interested in, um, not because just because I was interested in painting bodies. I probably would have found my way in here, but there was something uncomfortable about every time someone said to me, "Why are they naked?" And I kind of flipped flipped away from it without um, very quickly. And I kind of guess I know that now that that was a shame response. And actually looking at it head on and just going, oh, actually, I'm going to do this project. Um, it's true that I now actually experience shame as more like just a flush of heat that I recognize in this
Mm,
area, only in this area. And
mm.
it's definitely got less and less. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can build our capacity and our resilience around shame and to deactivate shame. And I have a process with clients who come to me is to support them somatically and to walk through and deactivate the shame responses and low kind of risk memories. And the more you do it, the more resilient you are. And then you become really aware, like tracking what are the things that I'm ashamed of? What are the things that I've learned? It's an adaptive behavior. We've learned this from our culture, religion, family, peers, whatever. And the more we realize, like, oh golly, I'm having a shame response, noticing and tracking the physiological responses as a kind of a witness, in kind of low risk, then the bigger ones, you're going to go, I'm feeling this contraction of heat. I'm doing this. What are my resources? How do I walk myself through this? How do I reconnect to myself? So it's very powerful that you're noticing, going, it's the flush of heat. I'm in a shame response. It
Yeah.
reduces the hold that shame has over you. Mm.
Yeah, I remember having this. Well, I do have this experience because I travel to London and I stay in some apartments and I have like 2 men a day booked in to come and be drawn, or it used to be 3 men a day, and now it's like actually I've realized two is like what I can energetically what I can is more comfortable. And the
Mm.
people on the front desk were a bit like getting a bit upset with how many men I've got coming and going, and they knew I was doing a drawing project. And in my mind, I was saying to myself, oh, well, maybe they just think I'm doing portraits or something. And then I thought, well, they would only need to probably look up my name that they have on their database to see what I'm doing. And then I had a massive shame response. So now I call it like my reception training. Every time I go to the reception, I'm like, okay, how am I going to walk down here without and just say that I'm not doing anything wrong? I'm not doing anything wrong. And let's see if I can look at them and maybe just interpret their smiles as support rather
Mm.
than we know you're doing something bad. But it's just like
Mm.
that story was playing out in my head.
Yeah, yeah. And like that's it. Our inner stories are like, the spelling cast or what casting spells,
Casting
spelling cast,
spells. Yeah.
casting spells, of we often look for evidence of how bad we are. We're trained to do that of looking for evidence of, oh, like they're smiling at me now, they're judging me, and oh, therefore I'm
Yeah.
a bad person. And that's the whole tracking of the mind parts, like what are the core beliefs and like what are the imprints that you received, and then how are you what's the identity it's protecting, like maybe I'm a good person, I'm not doing anything bad, you go into the reception like, oh please like me, I'm not, so we do these things of protecting identities with our belief systems, which are very normal natural ways of being, but it's this, yeah, just stepping back in awareness and already, just, so the taboo aspect of what you are, perceived to be doing, like painting the naked body. It's a natural thing. It's nature. We've all come through bodies. That's how we were born. Two bodies had to meet to have love making sex in order for you to be here, so it's breaking through all these shackles of beliefs that drawing them, observing them, unconditional positive regard with curiosity. And, our bodies are fascinating. They're beautiful. They're
Yeah.
wildly, innocent. And then all the interpretations, the associations that we put on them. And of course, our sexuality and our genitals are the places where we have maybe experienced or received the most shame, stigma, disconnect, and association with. So, you know, um, It's the part that I support people to get really friendly with. It's just an innocent part of our bodies. And it's a very pleasurable part of our bodies. And the thing that shame does, it interrupts pleasure. It interrupts our ability to feel sensation and for play and
Okay.
creativity. Yeah.
Well, that's great because I wanted to ask you about, well, I had it in my mind as desires, but it could be pleasure because I got to know you through your work. And I remember being in an online workshop with you last year, and it was about owning our desires. And there was
Mm,
a part where you invited us to write our desires in the chat. And I remember writing down, I would like to draw, I want to draw naked men. You know,
mm,
I want. And you read them out like a poem to us. And that piece about following our desires, I know I had some shame around following that. And is
mm.
that because, is there shame around desire in general, or is there just shame about things that we perceive if our desires are in areas that are shameful?
Mm. Yeah, it's a big piece of my work is supporting people to access their wants and desires because my teacher Katie Sarah's amazing human, but she likens our wants and desires in the boot of a car, and we're driving along in our adult life, and we've prioritized other people's wants and desires, and we're going along, and they're kind of bubbling and boiling because we've denied them, and when we maybe when we're least resourced and we're kind of tired, sometimes our wants and desires come out and they take over the driving seat and they're hot. They're like, they have this rage and sense of entitlement and hurt and like this, aspect of us that hasn't been heard. So they're kind of exiled. And then when we listen to them, when I support people to really just stream of consciousness, like, what do you want? And sometimes a lot of the time is supporting people to activate the strongest muscle in their body, which is the mandibular, can't remember the full name of it, because this muscle does a great job of keeping us small, keeping us back, holding us in, clenching in, to not be seen, because often it's been edgy to be seen. It's been a life-threatening thing to be different, to be seen, to be love yourself, to be seen, to be confident, usually get, pretty quickly brought down in various different cultures. And especially here in Ireland, but when we access our wants um, by voicing and representing ourselves, often the three motivators, there's the three things that our wants and desires are seeking: love, connection, and belonging. Expansiveness, expansion, and play, curiosity, and then maybe the elimination of pain. So every single client I work with in workshops, that's kind of the core piece, because when we don't acknowledge our wants, they're still there, and they basically come in sideways. So they're like they're in the shadow, and they end up basically living our lives in the shadow. So when we don't ask for what we want or say what we want, we end up like dropping hints, being passive aggressive, um, holding them small, denying them, putting up with like the breadcrumbs, and that generates resentment. That absolute, this withered, tired look of, well, I'm not going to bother asking because I'm not going to get it. So this defeated, resigned, like, well, and it's from this trait of, like, so I've whole like workshops on like what do you want, and what happens when you don't ask for what you want, and then like how do we show up in lives? And usually it's kind of like, ugh, we've been modeled this shit way of interacting with each other by not asking what we want, hoping the other person is psychic, pissed off when they're not. And then if we do, it's transactional. Like, if you give me, I'll make a fucking note of it. And by Jesus, he'll give it back to me, So, they're quite unhealthy ways of communicating, and especially around intimate relationships. But um, there was some other point I wanted to say about it, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, wanting, our wants and desires are statements, they're not requests. So it's kind of the first step of like, I want a cup of tea. It's in my domain. I have a right and responsibility. I want to make 20 grand, da da da. It's my right to want that, but it's not your responsibility to give it to me or to make it for me. So we have a right and we have a responsibility to take action to meet our wants, and that's like translating it into requests. Like, will
So
you?
it's like a two-step.
Yeah, 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 yeah. If we're declaring I want,
Yeah,
you know,
as a request. Yeah, I didn't really quite get. Yeah,
so you took the position of I have a right to have a want to paint naked men.
yeah.
And then you took responsibility for it. So your ability to respond to that want is you did all the groundwork of how do I do this? Where do I do this? Who do I ask? How do I? So you took responsibility for that
Okay.
want and desire, which, maybe comes from the motivation of connection, belonging, curiosity, play, expansion. As a motivator, that's what it's in service of. Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Does
yeah.
that resonate?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, I guess as I had that experience of drawing a polo and leaving off the genitals. So there was this hole in the middle of my drawing, and I realized for the first time ever that my gaze was a reduced gaze, and I was seeing some things and not others.
Yes.
And I didn't even couldn't quite believe that my experience was so edited, or that I was editing myself. And I guess that's what
Yeah,
shame. I
I
don't know if you can
remember.
speak to that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm dying to speak to you because I loved when you said that. I remember seeing your post about it, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, this is exactly the work that I would do with supporting people." Is because there's a term called genital amnesia. So it's
Oh,
basically, yeah, genital amnesia, and it's basically this whole thing that we have contact with our bodies, our face, our hands, da, 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 and then it's like, woo, and it's like we have no map in our heads for our genitals because maybe our
wow.
education was so poor around our genital anatomy and the various different configurations, but our own specific genital configuration. So when I support people around coaching is to like do mirror work, go through the various different names anatomically, and then see where's yours, what's yours looks like. And basically in somatic sexology piece is that you have a visual of it, and then you bring touch, so somatic, so you can feel like, oh, there's my clitoris. And then it suddenly is like, we create a landscape like a territory, like a cartography. Boom, there's my fourchette. There's my, uh, my scrotum. There's my da da da. So bringing touch, self touch, and looking at a mirror basically connects it so that it stops being a gaping hole of amnesia, because other parts of the body we've taken care of. Usually it's a rush with cleaning and with self pleasure, masturbation. It's usually very habitual, transactional, high repetitive touch, contraction of breath, and it's an automatic go for gold. So we avoid the exploration part of it, which the curiosity part. So what you're doing is bringing this into a highlighted view of like, or just encompassing it's a part of the body. It's like, yeah, what is this? All these plastic weird dolls that we had growing up, like Cindy
Oh
and
yeah,
Barbie.
yeah,
You
exactly.
look and they had like nothing. It was like
Nothing.
Ken had nothing. I was just like, what the fuck?
What the heck?
So that's how we kind of done it, like plastic, like whoop. So yeah.
Crazy. Well, when you said that, I was like, wow, I can see how profound that is. Yeah, drawing that part of the body. And well, the men experience me drawing that part of my body, their body, as profound, like they're
Yeah,
actually being seen.
absolutely being seen. And I get, the witnessing that you support them with is the gaze of curiosity, is the gaze of complete and utter encompassing. And it's a loving gaze, without, it's not, for me, I don't see it as it's a radically accepting gaze. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
taking anything from it, because that's also the experience that we've often we've had, is that it's transaction, it wants something, it's taking something, like, whereas you're capturing everything just exactly as it is.
It is.
And that
That, yeah.
dismantles shame and, yeah, being seen.
Wow. Genital amnesia.
Yes, yeah, I think that's the name of it. Yeah, yeah, gentle amnesia. I love it.
Genital amnesia. That is wild for me. And actually, because I dream about doing workshops where we start off doing life drawing, and then we draw ourselves and we draw each other to
Mm,
overcome that shame. And I actually think, yeah, I can see that drawing ourselves, that piece around touch and looking, but actually, yeah,
mm,
bringing that. I was reading about doing some research about how in our brains, when we're in a creative response, the amygdala quietens down and it
mm.
opens up different neural pathways that
Yeah,
seem to allow us to bypass shame in a different way because we're not working verbally.
gorgeous.
Thought was
Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um,
Great.
okay, so we hear a lot about shame these days. Shame, there's a whole bunch of words more on the horizon. Do you
Mm,
think what do you think is the what why is it taking such a prominent space? It's taking up more space, I think, uh,
mm, mm,
these days. Do you think there's any any
mm.
reason for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have just really advocated for
Mm,
highlighting it, and big names like Brené Brown and Gabor and, Mate. And
yeah,
so I think it's becoming more, people are becoming more aware of, like, ah, I've been in a shame response, or, and they've made it very accessible and approachable for people, and trauma and stuff. So I think we're all just learning, about
yeah.
these things. And I guess it's time, you know.
I
These
know.
things have had hold and, have maybe um restricted and edited our ways of being. People are like, yeah, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
There's some guy in our world, somatic sexology. Oh, I never remember his name, but he has a beautiful metaphor around shame as this electric fence experience, and that when we're younger, we are, going on with our lives, and we, something happens, or we do something, or we have an experience, and we hit off the electric fence and we get a shock, and our whole bodies have this experience of, like, the shame response of, the flush of heat, the contraction, and underlying the message of, I've done something wrong, or I've no, I've done something wrong is guilt. I'm inherently wrong, and I'm inherently a bad person. So they want to, at all costs, like, avoid that, and they go back into the center of the field, kind of thing, of the space, and then maybe there something else happens and they hit off the electric shock. So they retreat from that, avoid, do not want to experience it. So their world gets smaller, so suddenly they're living within these things, and the electric fence might not be on anymore. So, like, for an example, if, like, a younger person, teenagers exploring their bodies through self-pleasure, masturbation, and they get caught by a primary carer, and they're told off about it, like this, they get the message that I'm inherently wrong. I was touching a part of my body I'm not supposed to. This is bad. So they have this experience. So then they retreat and avoid feeling that. So they get more secretive. They get more smaller. They withdraw, they isolate, disconnect from others, maybe. So it becomes a secret, kind of shameful thing. So that's why we have this whole habitual automatic pattern of um, having learned to masturbate very quietly, high speed, automatic friction, in a very quick, rapid state of time. So a lot of the people who come to me have experience this neural pathways, that the only way they can have pleasure and have an orgasm is through these really high intense friction, no breath, no movement. So it means that when they're in intimate relationships, they don't feel intimacy, they maybe feel shame, they maybe can't orgasm. So it's like expanding this whole thing of like that electric shock is not there, your parents are not there, that core belief, like let's unpack and deactivate it and then create neural pathways so that intimacy is not just like a 30-second ejaculation or whatever. So it's yeah, the electric fences, I think it's a fascinating thing because we often operate within this electric fence of thinking, I want to avoid this. So yeah.
You know what? That is so fascinating. It really shines a light on. I've had two experiences in my life where I've had opportunities to have, well, probably more, but two big opportunities to have a lot of visibility. Like once when Charles Saatchi was coming to my studio and I wasn't there, and once when a friend of mine said, "Oh, um, who knew the editor of Country Living was like, we could do a big article on you and in this house that I was living in," and I was like, "Oh no." And it was like,
Mm,
when I look at those two things now, I'm like, what happened? And it was like this real major fear of visibility.
mm,
It scary, something about it was scary. So when you said earlier on, like, if we learn that visibility is, if we become visible and then we kind of get the, if
yeah.
there's that, it's like, it's really, I don't know, the way these play out is in our adult lives.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's, and as I said, visibility and being seen is so edgy for a lot of us. And it's a nervous system survival strategy as well, often.
yeah,
It's protector. And I'm always so gentle with these parts of us. It's like, that did a great job,
yeah,
so clever of you when you were younger to protect that part of you that didn't feel safe to show up
yeah,
in whatever whoever was holding you then.
yeah,
And you know it's not, I think sometimes we charge through like, oh, I should just be visible, I should do this, and it's like, hold on a second, your whole system has wired to protect yourself, and it's coming back to like nervous system rewiring, repatterning is, it takes a while, and it's not something you can fucking push through. We've done so much pushing in our lives. So it's a gentle repattering, and it's also a takes practice, kind of takes consistent practice. But it's not like on Instagram, there's like these hacks, da da da, and then you be woo woo. And it's like, what? Come on, for fuck's sake. And that just makes everyone feel worse. Like, oh, I did this for 2 days in a row and I'm not fixed. Why can't I do a reel on Instagram? It's like,
yeah,
oh, so just I don't want to minimize these parts of us because they have done an exquisite job, and more now, and
yeah,
maybe like I'm tired. Maybe I don't want to be like that. This is an old version of me, and
yeah,
how do I want to? What's my new version?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
expanding your capacity, your resilience, your receptivity, and they're all um, nervous systems and neural pathways and core beliefs, all patterns. Yeah.
yeah. Massive, massive. Well, that really, because it's true that I still feel the impact of people's comments, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, or whether it's my own internal,
Mm.
or whether it's my own. I did a crit the other day, and with some of my mentors, art mentors, and we kind of got to the point of thinking, well, the cocks are the most important part of the drawing, so maybe I could rub out every other thing. And I was like, well, I quite like the cocks and the hands. And they were like, cocks and the hands, leave them. They go together beautifully. What's not to love? And it's like, it's just, I was kind of doing some paintings yesterday of cocks and hands, and I don't know, it all can feel a bit edgy for me, and
Mm.
as well as just doing it anyway. But
Mm.
yeah.
You're doing amazing. Like what you're doing is pioneering and just supporting this deshackling of shame. Yeah, because
Oh.
it's edgy. I really appreciate, yeah, what you're
Oh,
doing.
thank you. It's
Yeah.
it's it's a crazy ride. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is. Would you have it any other way?
No. Oh, Karen, thank you so much. It's been so gorgeous to even, I feel like we've just taken the lid off. But
Mm,
anyway,
mm, yeah.
yeah, gorgeous to have you here and to be talking to you
Mm,
about these things.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome. Yeah, darling. Thank you so much for having me.
And I guess I should say, if people want to get in touch with you to find out more about your work, where do they
Mm.
find you?
Yeah, I have a website, and it's karenegancuan.com. And Cuan Oscuelga is safe harbor. So it's my whole thing is that, the last 20 years of learning with these various different modalities I've used is we often don't feel safe in our bodies or feel safe in our emotions. So once we have a felt sense of safety in these places, we can prosper and blossom. So also my Instagram is Karen Egan Kuhn. And yeah, I've got some online workshops coming up, online workshops and in-person things. So yeah, I can put a link, I can send you stuff you can add to this.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karen.
You're
Mm.
so welcome, darling.
Oh,
Thank
gorgeous.
you.
Okay.